Kia ora koutou, ko Arron Cox from the Ministry for the Environment down in Wellington. Apologies, my speech is going to be fairly short because I left my laptop in Timaru after a weekend away, so I've sort of written a few notes to speak about. So, as most of you would know, and what we've heard today is that urban water around Aotearoa is not in the best state, and it has declined for a while. From a very, very high level, about 80% of rivers in Aotearoa are in exceedance of guideline values. We've lost about 90% of our wetlands, and we've lost a large portion of our urban streams. And as urban areas continue to develop, these pressures will continue to grow if we don't change direction. In response to these pressures overall, the government set three main objectives for freshwater when it came into power in about 2017. First was to stop further decline and see material improvements within 5 years. The second one was to restore waterways to a healthy state within a generation, and the third one was to address allocation issues. Most of you will be aware that the essential freshwater proposals are still out for consultation until Thursday, I believe, if that's the 31st of October. And these proposals looked to address the first two objectives. The third objective is still being worked on, but wasn't actually consulted on. I'll have a quick chat over how I personally see the proposals aligning with water-sensitive urban design. Just want to make it clear that this is not government policy, it's my personal view, but it's certainly thinking that I'm bringing to the table. So one of the key proposals in the National Policy Statement for Freshwater Management is Te Mana Tawai. And what Te Mana Tawai does is it sets up a framework for water management around Aotearoa. And it sets up a hierarchy of, firstly, the right of the water goes to the water. Secondly, the water is then used for addressing basic human needs. And thirdly, then water is used for all other uses. Oh, no, sorry. If we think about water-sensitive urban design, that takes a bit of a different approach from conventional stormwater, where we're just putting things in pipes and taking it away. So using it from a conventional stormwater, essentially just getting rid of the flooding, addressing the human need, the basic human need of not having a flooded house. Whereas Te Mana Tawai looks at preserving and maintaining the natural systems, reducing the impact on the environment, as well as, in my view, it actually meets our basic human need of having a nice looking urban environment. Certainly for me, having green spaces is actually quite nice. In the essential freshwater proposals, there's several that do apply to urban areas, and specifically stormwater as well. One of them is looking at, we're directing territorial authorities to consider how they can improve freshwater outcomes when they're making decisions on urban development. So I think this is where there'll be a little bit more of a impetus for territorial authorities to think about how they can consider water-sensitive design to improve those outcomes. Secondly, as Nicola briefly mentioned, there's some policy out there to restrict development or restrict the loss of urban streams and wetlands. Essentially, that if you want to remove a wetland or if you want to remove a stream, you have to make a very good case in your consent application. And this is where I see water-sensitive urban design coming in to try and get the best outcome overall, but that's not to say that conventional pipe systems can still meet the requirements for not losing urban streams. And there's also some proposals out there, there's proposals for stricter limits on sediment, and from what I understand, water-sensitive urban design can help prevent sediment go to those rivers. Oh, and here's some pictures that I put in somewhere. In terms of what the government is doing to promote water-sensitive design nationally, this is an area that, forgot to mention that I'm from the urban water team. This is an area that we're developing in at the moment. So this year we are developing guidance on promoting best practice for stormwater management. It will consist of 4 parts. The first part will look at developing a suite of plan provisions that can be used by both regional and district councils to promote good urban water practices, including water-sensitive urban design. The second part will look at guidance on structure planning, and there'll be 2 other modules, one on guidance on consent conditions for comprehensive stormwater consents. Reason being is that we're seeing nationally that councils are preferring those, and there's a bow wave, as we call it, of stormwater consents coming up within the next 10 years, when I think about 60% of stormwater consents held by district councils nationally will need to be renewed, but we don't really have a good idea of the scale of that because we haven't dove down into it. And the fourth part will look at non-regulatory practices for promoting good stormwater management. So that is more based on education or community outreach, just to help councils that have less capacity to look at that stuff, just really get an idea of what's happening nationally. We're also supporting the Urban Water Working Group. In October last year, they developed the Urban Water Principles, which are out there. Thank you, Claudia, for getting a really awesome poster. A couple of weeks ago now, the Urban Water Working Group made a range of recommendations for the government to consider. These were based on what policy the government should adopt to promote to protect and enhance Te Manawatū in urban areas, as well as a range of practices. We're currently having a look at how we can respond to that, and there'll be we'll be posting the government's response as well as the principles, the policy recommendations themselves, probably by December. So that is it from me. I recognise I've probably whizzed through a lot of it. If there's any questions, feel free to come up to me afterwards